The new faith sometimes incorporated elements of older beliefs, particularly regarding the afterlife and the veneration of holy figures. "Look at how they depict their Christos," whispers a traditional priest watching a Christian funeral. "Arms outstretched like Osiris. Their saints receive prayers like our gods. They preserve bodies of holy men just as we preserve our sacred mummies. They've taken our ways and given them new names." By the 4th century CE, Christianity gained imperial support when Emperor Constantine legalized the religion, and later emperors made it the official faith of Rome. Traditional Egyptian temples began to lose state funding and faced increasing restrictions. The Temple of Philae, on an island in the Nile near Aswan, provides a poignant example of this transition. As one of the last functioning centres of the traditional Egyptian religion, it remained active even as Christianity became dominant elsewhere. "We maintain the ancient ways," a priest at Philae tells you around 390 CE. "People still come from distant villages for oracles and healing. The goddess Isis has protected her shrine through many troubles. She will continue." His confidence was misplaced. In 535 CE, Emperor Justinian ordered the temple closed. Its walls were later repurposed for Christian worship, with Egyptian religious imagery plastered over and crosses carved into ancient relief sculptures. The final known hieroglyphic inscription dates to 394 CE, carved at Philae. The final Demotic text was written in 452 CE. With that, the ancient Egyptian writing system that had endured for nearly 4,000 years fell silent, its secrets eventually lost until the Rosetta Stone's decipherment in the 19th century. But even as traditional writing and formal religion faded, elements of ancient Egyptian culture persisted in the Coptic Christian tradition that emerged. The Coptic language, the final stage of ancient Egyptian, written using Greek letters with a few additional signs, preserved the indigenous tongue of Egypt into the Middle Ages. Coptic Christianity maintained distinctively Egyptian characteristics, including artistic styles reminiscent of pharaonic art, architectural elements from ancient temples, and even some religious practices with ancient roots, such as the veneration of saints, which paralleled the earlier cult of local gods. "We are Christians now," an Egyptian monk tells you in a Coptic monastery around 500 CE, "but we remain Egyptians. Our fathers built the pyramids and carved the sphinxes. That heritage flows in our blood even as we pray to Christ." This cultural persistence is perhaps ancient Egypt's most remarkable achievement. Few civilizations have maintained such continuity across millennia or left such an indelible mark on human imagination. The monuments, art, and concepts of ancient Egypt continue to captivate us today, fulfilling the deepest wish of the ancient Egyptians themselves, to be remembered forever. As twilight falls on ancient Egyptian civilization, it's worth reflecting on what made it so extraordinary. It wasn't just the pyramids, the mummies, or the elaborate mythology, impressive as these are. It was the Egyptians' unique relationship with permanence and change, their ability to absorb foreign influences while maintaining core cultural elements, and their profound belief in a cosmic order that could be maintained through proper human action. They faced the same challenges we do: climate change, resource pressures, political instability, technological disruption, yet created a society that endured longer than any other in human history. Their story isn't just about pharaohs and monuments, but about how ordinary people found meaning and created beauty in a world full of uncertainty. Unlike your modern bed, with its manufactured frame and machine-woven sheets, the ancient Egyptians slept on beds made by hand, often simple wooden frames with reed mats or linen cord webbing. But like you, they dreamed, worried about tomorrow, found joy in small pleasures, and hoped to be remembered when they were gone. In your comfortable modern home, secure from the elements and filled with conveniences the Egyptians couldn't imagine, you share something profound with them, the human desire to understand our place in the cosmos and to leave something of ourselves behind when we're gone. In learning their story, you help fulfill their deepest wish, to be remembered, to achieve a kind of immortality through memory. The last hieroglyphic inscription was carved at the Temple of Philae in 394 CE. The final Demotic text was written in 452 CE. For the first time in nearly 4,000 years, the ancient Egyptian writing system fell silent. The knowledge needed to read these scripts gradually faded until no one remained who could decipher them. Egypt itself continued, of course. The land remained, the Nile still flooded, people still farmed the black soil, but the direct connection to the civilization of the pharaohs was broken. The great temples became quarries for building materials, sand slowly buried monuments. Tombs were looted, then forgotten. Strange to think, muses an Arab merchant travelling through Egypt around 850 CE, gazing up at the weathered face of the Great Sphinx, that no one remembers who built this or why. It simply exists like a mountain or the sea. For over 1,000 years, the ancient Egyptian language and writing remained unreadable. The magnificent architecture still stood, the pyramids, temples, and tombs too massive to disappear entirely, but their meaning was lost. Travellers from medieval Europe and the Islamic world marvelled at these structures, but could only guess at their purpose. The Renaissance brought renewed European interest in Egypt, but still without understanding. In the 1600s, a German Jesuit named Athanasius Kircher attempted to translate hieroglyphics, believing they were purely symbolic rather than phonetic. He got almost everything wrong, yet his work kept interest in ancient Egypt alive. These symbols must contain great wisdom, Kircher wrote, incorrectly translating a standard royal inscription as a mystical philosophical text. The ancient priests encoded their secret knowledge in these sacred signs. This misunderstanding of Egypt as a land of mystery and hidden wisdom took root in European imagination. Secretly, though, real Egyptian wisdom had been influencing Western culture all along, through Greek writers like Herodotus, Plutarch, and Diodorus Siculus, whose accounts of Egypt, however flawed, preserved something of its greatness. Egypt's architectural legacy also survived in the obelisks that Roman emperors had transported to their capital. Several still stand in Rome today, inscriptions unreadable, but the imperial power they represented still evident. The real turning point came with Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt in 1798. Along with his troops, Napoleon brought over 150 civilian scholars, scientists, engineers, artists, and linguists to study every aspect of Egypt, ancient and modern. Record everything, Napoleon instructed the scholars. Every monument, every inscription, every plant and animal. Egypt is a treasure house of knowledge, and we shall unlock it. This expedition produced the monumental Description de l'Egypte, a series of volumes documenting Egyptian antiquities with unprecedented accuracy. More importantly, in 1799, French soldiers discovered a large stone near the town of Rosetta with an inscription in 3 scripts: hieroglyphic, demotic, and ancient Greek. This Rosetta Stone would eventually provide the key to deciphering hieroglyphics, though the breakthrough didn't come immediately. It took years of work by scholars, particularly the Englishman Thomas Young and the Frenchman Jean-François Champollion. Eureka, Champollion allegedly exclaimed in 1822, rushing into his brother's office. "I've got it. After collapsing from exhaustion, he spent the next 5 days bedridden, but he had cracked the code. Hieroglyphics weren't purely symbolic. They represented sounds, just like our alphabet, though with additional complexities. With this discovery, ancient Egypt began to speak again after a silence of nearly 1,400 years. Suddenly, temple walls, papyri, and tomb inscriptions could be read, revealing not mystical secrets but the practical details of government, religion, and daily life. They weren't writing magical spells on their tombs, a 19th century Egyptologist explains to a disappointed visitor. This section is a standard offering formula. This lists the owner's titles. Here are the names of his wife and children. It's administrative, not mystical. The 19th and 20th centuries saw an explosion of Egyptological research, with archaeological expeditions uncovering new sites and artifacts. Howard Carter's discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922 captured worldwide imagination. The treasures found inside, including the famous golden mask, toured the globe, creating an Egyptomania that influenced everything from fashion to furniture design. As archaeological techniques improved, excavations shifted focus from spectacular royal tombs to humble settlements, helping us understand the lives of ordinary ancient Egyptians. Each new discovery added details to our understanding, though much remains unknown. We used to think the pyramids were built by slaves, explains a modern Egyptologist at Giza. Now we know they were constructed by paid labourers, many of whom worked seasonally during the Nile flood when they couldn't farm. We found their village, their tools, even their graffiti joking about the king. Today, millions of tourists visit Egypt annually to marvel at its ancient monuments. Countless books, documentaries, and university courses examine every aspect of Egyptian civilization. Museums around the world display Egyptian artifacts, from monumental statues to humble household items. But why does ancient Egypt continue to captivate us? What made this particular civilization so exceptional? Part of the answer lies in its incredible longevity. Ancient Egyptian culture maintained remarkable continuity from around 3100 BCE to at least 394 CE, over 3,500 years. For comparison, the United States has existed for less than 250 years. The entire history of ancient Greece, from its earliest beginnings to Roman conquest, spans about 1,500 years. This extraordinary continuity stemmed from several factors. Egypt's geography provided natural protection, with deserts to the east and west and the Mediterranean to the north. The Nile's predictable annual flood created agricultural stability unknown in other ancient societies that depended on rainfall, and the Egyptians developed cultural and religious systems that emphasized stability and resisted rapid change. Ma'at, the concept of cosmic order, balance and justice, was central to Egyptian thought, explains an anthropologist studying ancient belief systems. They saw change as potentially disruptive to this divine order. Their ideal wasn't progress, but the maintenance of what they believed was the perfect arrangement established at creation. This doesn't mean Egyptian society never changed, of course. We've seen how it evolved through periods of unity and fragmentation, native rule and foreign occupation, isolation and international engagement. But compared to many ancient societies, Egypt maintained remarkable cultural consistency over millennia. Another factor in Egypt's enduring appeal is the sheer physical presence of its monuments. The pyramids at Giza remain the only surviving wonder of the ancient world. They've stood for over 4,500 years, their massive stone blocks defying time, while civilizations rose and fell around them. "I've worked at archaeological sites worldwide," confides a veteran excavator, "but nothing compares to that moment each morning when the sun hits the Great Pyramid. For a few minutes it glows golden, just as it did when it was new, and you feel connected across thousands of years to the people who built it." This tangible connection to the ancient past gives Egypt a unique place in our imagination. We can walk through the same temples where priests performed rituals 3,000 years ago, see the faces of people who died before Rome was founded, and read their actual words inscribed in stone. Egypt's obsession with death and the afterlife also contributes to its fascination. Every human culture grapples with mortality, but few have left such elaborate physical evidence of their beliefs. Egyptian mummies, tomb paintings, and funerary texts offer an unusually detailed view of how one ancient society confronted death's universal challenge. "They weren't morbid," explains a museum curator specializing in Egyptian funerary customs. "Just the opposite. They loved life so much they wanted it to continue forever. Everything in their tombs, from food to furniture, games to cosmetics, was meant to ensure they could enjoy the afterlife just as they had enjoyed this one." Perhaps most important is Egypt's role as a cultural foundation. Along with Mesopotamia, it represents one of humanity's earliest experiments with civilization itself, the development of writing, monumental architecture, organized religion, centralized government, and large-scale social organization. Egypt influenced the ancient Israelites. Abraham, Moses, and Joseph all supposedly spent time there. The Nubians and other African cultures, the Greeks, who considered Egypt the source of wisdom and learning, and through them, the Romans and later European societies. Christianity incorporated elements of Egyptian religion, particularly regarding the afterlife. Islamic scholars preserved and transmitted ancient knowledge, including works about Egypt. Even today, Egyptian symbols and concepts permeate our world, often without our noticing. The pyramid appears on the American dollar bill. Obelisks stand in Washington, D.C., London, and Paris. Our 12-month calendar derives partly from the Egyptian system. Some traditional wedding rings are designed after the Egyptian Ankh symbol of life. Next time you're in a cemetery, look at the tombstones, suggests an architectural historian. Those obelisks? Egyptian? The pyramid-shaped monuments? Egyptian? Even the angel sculptures have predecessors in Egyptian winged protective deities. Our ways of memorializing death owe much to ancient Egypt. Egypt's influence extends to literature, film, and popular culture. From Elizabeth Taylor's Cleopatra to the Mummy franchise, from Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile to countless documentaries, Egypt provides an endless source of storytelling inspiration. Its symbols and imagery appear in everything from tarot cards to tattoos, heavy metal album covers to luxury brand logos. More subtly, Egyptian thought continues to influence how we understand the relationship between humanity and cosmic order. The Egyptian concept that human actions affect universal harmony has parallels in modern environmental ethics. Their integration of religious belief with practical governance reflects tensions still present in many societies today. The Egyptians believed you couldn't separate cosmic order from social justice, explains a scholar of ancient ethics. To them, mistreating people or damaging the natural world wasn't just morally wrong, it threatened the entire universal balance. That's not so different from modern ecological thinking. As night deepens and our journey through ancient Egyptian history comes to a close, it's worth reflecting on what this vanished civilization might teach us. The Egyptians faced challenges we still struggle with, maintaining social cohesion, adapting to environmental change, balancing tradition with innovation, finding meaning in a world filled with uncertainty. They responded with remarkable creativity, building a society that endured longer than any other in human history. Their art still moves us with its elegant simplicity. Their architecture still inspires awe. Their writing still speaks to us across millennia, reminding us of our shared humanity. We think technology makes us different from ancient people. An elderly Egyptian tour guide tells a group at Saqqara, his face weathered from decades in the desert sun. But look at what's written on this tomb from 4,000 years ago. I was kind to my family. I helped those in need. I spoke truth. I tried to leave a good name. Are your hopes so different? He's right, of course. For all their exotic beliefs and distant past, the ancient Egyptians were people like us, hoping for happiness in this life and some form of continuation beyond it, seeking security for their families, trying to create meaning through work and relationships. Their story reminds us of both human resilience and fragility. They built monuments meant to last forever, yet their civilization eventually faded. They preserved their dead with elaborate care, yet most of their mummies were ultimately destroyed or displayed in museums far from their homeland. They developed writing to make their words permanent, yet their language became unreadable for over a millennium. Despite these failures, they achieved a kind of immortality, not the literal physical kind they sought, but the immortality of cultural memory and influence. We still speak their names, visit their monuments, study their language, and ponder their beliefs. In this way, they continue to live, fulfilling the deepest wish expressed in countless Egyptian texts. May my name endure upon the earth. As you rest in your modern bed, surrounded by comforts the Egyptians could never have imagined, remember that you're connected to them through the unbroken thread of human experience. Their questions remain our questions. How should we live? What endures after death? How can we create something meaningful that outlasts us? The pyramids rising from the desert sand answer with silent certainty, by building well, by honouring what matters most, by understanding that nothing material truly lasts forever. Yet through our creations and the memories we leave, something of us may endure. Close your eyes now and imagine standing before the Great Sphinx at sunset, the ancient stone warming your hand as you touch its weathered paw. For a moment, time dissolves. You're connected to everyone who ever stood there, from pharaohs and priests to Napoleon's scholars, from medieval travellers to future visitors not yet born. Like the gentle current of the Nile flowing eternally northward, human consciousness continues, carrying something of Egypt with it always. Let yourself drift now into peaceful sleep, perhaps to dream of golden tombs, desert sands, and a civilization that reached for eternity, and in some small way found it.